Happening today, John Kevin Stitt has now been governor of Oklahoma for 100 days. And as has become tradition in American politics and in journalism, we're going to use that 100-day benchmark to go in depth on Governor Stitt's accomplishments since taking office on January 14th of this year. Governor Stitt, welcome back to the KRMG Morning News.
Well, thank you so much. Such an honor to be back with you, and it's certainly an honor to be serving the great state of Oklahoma as their governor.
Earlier this month, you signed a slew of bills passed by the legislature. First one you signed in that pile of bills was the one giving Oklahomans the right to carry firearms without a state permit or without mandatory training, the constitutional carry or permitless carry bill. But while that was the first one to get signed, I'm betting the one that you view as the most important is the one you signed that gives you as governor the authority to hire, fire, and set the salary of directors of 5 large state agencies. We'll say what those agencies are: Department of Corrections, Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, the Health Care Authority, and the Office of Juvenile Affairs. That bill makes you the most powerful governor in the history of the state of Oklahoma, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I guess so. I've seen it, people characterize it that way. But, you know, what I tell Oklahomans, if we're hiring a new football coach, you obviously would give that football coach the ability to hire their own offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and special teams coach. And then certainly would have those coordinators reporting up to the head coach. And that's what I told Oklahomans and the legislature when I got there is we've got to be able to run the agencies. We've got to have the right accountability. And so I was so excited to work with the House, the Senate, get that signed about 3 weeks ago now, or maybe a month ago. And it's just it's a huge game changer for Oklahoma because I believe we all want the same things. We all want the best education for our kids. We want the best health care. We want the best roads and bridges. This bill will allow me to deliver services better, more effectively for Oklahomans.
And to weed out corruption and mismanagement if you find it, right?
100%, because what was happening, here's what I told Oklahomans, is these agency heads were a fourth branch of government. They were hiring their own lobbyists, which I put a stop to. They were holding their own press conferences. They were spinning everybody in a circle. They weren't reporting to the legislature. They certainly weren't reporting to the governor's office. It is a game changer. It's going to change the way that we deliver services for Oklahomans. And you know, other states, when I talked to other governors, they couldn't believe that I didn't have the authority to run the largest state agencies. And it just didn't make sense. And I'm so happy that the legislature agreed with me and we got that thing signed.
Of course, the next time a Democrat's elected governor of the state of Oklahoma, they'll have the same powers. You're okay with that?
100%. I mean, listen, I've met with all the former governors. You know, there's too much partisanship. These governors, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, they've all sent me, hey, Governor Stitt, you're our governor now. We want to make sure that you're successful. Here's 12 things that I did as governor that helped. Governor Walters sent me a great list. So people think that they're also trying to move the needle. They're trying to run these agencies. And so I don't buy the fact that if it's a Republican governor or Democrat governor, that they're not trying to do what's best for our state. We might disagree with some of the policies, but delivering services and making sure that the dollars get on target, nobody wants to waste resources, waste money. And so I'm excited that it's done for myself and for future governors.
As I said, the constitutional carry bill was the first one you signed. Is there a symbolic statement you were making, the importance of that bill, by signing it first?
You know, not really. It just kind of happened that way, that it came to my desk first. What was important to me and what I told the legislatures, we need to make sure that business owners have the same rights. So the NBA and certain business owners have the rights to say you can't carry on our property. But yet, as a Second Amendment supporter and a person that believes in our Second Amendment rights, I was excited to sign that. I think it's a make sense piece of legislation. It is already law in 15 other states. I remind people that in Bernie Sanders' Vermont, they have the exact same legislation. Exactly. And we were already reciprocating with other states when these gun owners were come to our state. And so I wanted to give Oklahoma citizens that same right.
Yeah. One of the 14 Senate bills and 22 House bills you signed on April 12th, one of them's going to make getting from point to point in Oklahoma quicker. And that's a bill allowing speed limits on the turnpikes to be up to 80 miles an hour. Sure, now we have a governor that lives in Jinx. You want to shorten your trip to Oklahoma City, don't you?
Absolutely. Well, they've done a great job. Our Department of Transportation, our Turnpike Authority, we've got that great widening there between Tulsa and I think Bristow exit. Like that continue all the way down to Oklahoma City. But 80 miles an hour, most people were traveling that anyway, and I wanted to increase that.
And one of the things, Dan's joking right there, but you sold the state airplanes, so you have to drive some places, but you got immediate response from that. And one of the things you told Russell and I the night that Pence was here and the night that you and I talked about when you got elected was, first of all, that accountability thing, which I know you're working on. We'll get to that in a second. Secondly, it was things like that. It was saving money. There's $2 million or so on those planes. Where else have you found?
Well, it's been tons of things, but yeah, we signed that executive order because I love aviation, but I was going to look at the facts, and the governor only flew the state airplane 67 hours last year. We were training about 5 pilots, the maintenance cost, all that. It just didn't make sense.
No.
You need to be flying 200 to 300 hours a year to own your own aircraft. Otherwise, it's much better to lease. So that's why I did that. But the other types of stories, I went and visited the Department of Transportation. Here's another example, and went through it, saw the agency. They showed me their new project, and they had these 2 trucks called GODOT trucks, GODOT. Okay, and there were 2 dually vehicles painted with all the lights, and I said, "What are they for?" And they said, "Well, it's kind of motorist assist." They had, they would change flat tires. They would tow people off to the side of the road, fill up gasoline if people ran out of gas. And great idea, but I told them to kill that program. And here's why, because I said, that doesn't get me top 10 in my roads and bridges. And I want to be top 10 in roads and bridges. And the executive director, because I had authority to kind of make decisions there, they thanked me for that because they go, well, we were about to order new trucks for this city and this city. And here's the problem I want Oklahomans to know is that if I don't shut some of those projects down, this mission creep, then 20 years from now, that'll be spun out at a whole new agency called Motorist Assist. It's starting to compete with AAA. And if Oklahoma City and Tulsa have trucks, then Duncan and Enid and Woodward and Guyman and everybody else, and it'll be a $50 million state agency. That's what I can do by going in and making sure I define what success looks like, put metrics in place, and hold them accountable to deliver results. We don't have any different issues than they have in any other state, and that's what I'm holding those agencies accountable to deliver better services.
Is there a state agency that you can hold up to the others and say this is an example of a state agency that's run efficiently and with the taxpayers in mind?
Well, there's going to be hopefully all of them.
I mean, have you identified one right now that you think's doing a pretty good job, or do you think they all need work?
Well, I haven't had a chance to dig in all the way down, so
Okay.
I wouldn't name one of them. But one thing that we're doing differently is I have my cabinet now in place, and all the agencies report up to my cabinet secretaries. So that's how it's supposed to be. And every cabinet secretary has about 15 to sometimes 40 agencies that report to them. The simple stuff my secretaries they've already gone and met with every one of their agencies. It's the first time the agencies have met with their secretaries. First time. It's amazing. So literally, my agencies have actually started to define what success. We're making them put together their 4-year plan, their 1-year plan, their quarterly goals, and talking and starting to explain to our secretary that then flows up to me on how we're going to become top 10 in this agency. And that's what we're doing.
I got to ask. I mean, it sounds very much like it's probably what you've done in your mortgage company, and the way we always equate, can you run a state like a business? This sounds like a business. Is this model somewhat after what you did?
Absolutely. I mean, the accountability, the hiring the right people, putting the right processes in place, those are all business principles, right? The outcome, once you figure out what you're trying to do, we're trying to be top 10 in pavement conditions, top 10 in roads, top 10 in bridges, okay? So if that's the goal, then all these mission creeps, all these small little projects, you're trying to help that agency identify what they're supposed to be doing. Healthcare Authority. There's 7,000 employees in the Healthcare Authority. Okay, 7,000 employees. That's $5.5 billion. the legislature gave me the authority to now oversee that agency, and that's what I'm doing. I'm actually digging in to figure out how I can get more dollars into my nursing homes, into my rural hospitals, into the providers' hands. That's what we're for. We're not there to, for these 7,000 employees. We're there to actually get those dollars into our health system. And so that's kind of just a different way to approach it.
When he says dig in, that's not a shovel, that's a front end loader when you start getting into stuff like that.
It is. Do you see that accountability piece as your biggest accomplishment so far?
The executive orders, kind of stopping the lobbyist was a huge one because the agencies were hiring lobbyists. That's huge. The executive orders is huge. I've transformed the way that we do the budgeting process. So I've already talked to in other words, I'm talking total dollars. Normally, the governor's just talked about the appropriated dollars. But what I want Oklahomans to know, 40% of the dollars that are spent throughout these agencies come from federal dollars. So I'm teaching the legislature kind of new vocabulary. We're talking total dollars, not just what's appropriated, okay, but also what's federal dollars. There's fees that come through there. So we've reimagined that. I've already got $5 million to the Quick Action Closing Fund, so we can actually create, throw gas on economic development and commerce. Just to give you an idea how big that was, and the whole existence of the governor's closing fund total was only $11 million. I've already got $5 million in there as a special supplemental. So that
give me an example of how that would be used.
So, in other words, if let's say we're working right now on a big aerospace company to move to Oklahoma City, 300 jobs. We think it'll grow to 1,000. We're competing against a couple other states. So then we have to kind of put our best foot forward and say, if you're really going to move this, we're going to help you with whether it's a tax credit or it's a governor's closing fund for moving cost, because we look at the revenue potential and the tax base and the jobs that are going to be created, and we have Commerce has a great formula there. And if it's revenue neutral, then we're going to help get those jobs here, because if I get 1,500 new jobs here, then that's going to help our bankers, that's going to help our State Farm agents, that's going to help our bicycle shops, our restaurants. That dollar will spend 7 times. And so we have some ability to match some of the other states and help bring commerce here.
It's a KRMG Morning News 8 a.m. in-depth hour, speaking with Governor Kevin Stitt, 100 days in office. We'll be back in just a moment. It's the KRMG Morning News with Dan Potter. Our guest in studio is Governor Kevin Stitt as we mark 100 days of his administration. We talked about some of the accomplishments and a lot of the bills that have already been signed. And, of course, if you missed any part of this show, you can listen later today on demand on the KRMG app or at krmg.com. We also have video posted, too.
We are, and you're going to be able to see it on Facebook and on YouTube, something we're going to start doing an awful lot more of, and you'll be able to search and find it there.
What do you see as the biggest piece of work yet to be done that you haven't really even gotten to start?
One thing that I'm really focused on is criminal justice reform. And so we've got to finish that up. I've got to make sure that happens before the end of the session here. So I'm really pushing for $10 million in diversion-type programs, sentencing reform, redoing the parole system. I had 3 appointees on the parole board, so I wanted to make sure that we get folks. I'm looking at a retro 780, so we can take all of the, Oklahomans passed. We passed, making felony drug offenses misdemeanors. So now I want to retro that. I want to take the people that are in prison for those crimes that would be considered a misdemeanor, and I want to get them out via the parole system. So I'm really reimagining, putting a lot of focus on that. I'm the first governor that put a chief operating officer on my cabinet. Now 7 other states have done that. So, because I have to have somebody that's very process-oriented, running the agencies. I'm the first governor that's put a digital transformation person on my cabinet. So I'm focused on bringing digital transformation technology to the way we run state government as well.
When we say things to do, as Dan mentioned, it's always going to change too, isn't it? It's always going to evolve. You sit down and do this, you're in the now, but you also have to think later. What do you see as the biggest challenges yet to come?
Well, I'm trying to get the legislature to also think, next year and the year after, and that's part of my savings plan. So when I think about the budget, historically, however much extra revenue they have this year, the legislature will just spend it. They'll just spend it on whatever. Well, what you're doing is you're raising the watermark. You're raising the expense appropriation numbers up to a level that nobody ever wants to go backwards. So I'm looking ahead next year and figuring out exactly where the revenue is going to come in and saying, guys, we cannot increase it. We have to save $200 million. And so that's a big focus of mine. When I got there, we only had $400 million in savings. At the end of next year, if we do what I want, we should have $1.1 billion in savings. It's a huge deal. My goal at the end of 4 years is to have $2 billion in savings. If we have a $2 billion savings account, we will never have to cut core services again. So in the good times, you can't spend all of your revenue. Okay, that'd be silly. Mm-hmm. And so those are some things that I'm looking forward to making sure we're thinking outside of just this one session. Yeah,
and speaking of that, one of the things you've done is you mentioned your COO, and you hire a guy from Sonic. That's a smart move, right? But also you hire guys like Sean Copeland to be in commerce. And I know that Sean and people like that are working endlessly. What kind of energy has that business acumen, if you will, brought?
Great point. Sean Copeland's a fantastic business guy. I think 10 out of my 15 cabinet secretaries are all business people. The guy that's running my Secretary of Health is Jerome Lockridge. He's a Duncan kid, grew up in Duncan, went to Baylor, went to Harvard, so super sharp oil and gas guy. Because really, the normal playbook is to hire subject matter experts to run these different things. But in just healthcare, there's 78 agencies that report to healthcare and thousands of employees, about $8 billion worth of total money. I have to have business people that understand process, understand what are we trying to accomplish, because it's leadership, it's setting goals, it's holding people accountable, it's process. There are so many smart people there that are the subject matter experts, but I have to also have people that understand business and how to actually deliver results.
So speaking of revenue, we've got several million in our state coffers now from the legalization of the use of medical marijuana. I think just in February, what we have, 2 million in state revenue, 12 million in total sales, something like that. Where's that money going, and how do you envision it being used?
Well, first off, it's going to go through the legislature to be appropriated to different agencies, and so I think there's when they rolled it out, you pay $100 for a card. I think there's about 35,000 cards now that have been issued, and so we've got to make sure that people that need that help, and the voters voted said, hey, if you need medicine and marijuana is going to help you, we need to make sure that's available. But we also have to make sure that businesses have safe working environments. We've got to make sure that they know how they can address that if they have forklift operators, if you're driving trucks. So that was the important thing on that legislation side, is make sure we protect. So
you signed another bill, the so-called Unity bill, that has some of those provisions in it.
That's correct. Because the business owners were telling me, we've got to make sure that we have safe working environments. We get the fact that somebody needs medicine, but it doesn't mean that we can allow public safety, and we've got trucks on the road. And so we really had to get some clarity, because the original bill that was ran through the people didn't really address some of those other needs. And so that was the purpose of the Unity bill that I signed.
Think it's going okay so far?
I do, yeah.
It really strikes me that the energy you brought to this, and in just talking to the members of your team who I know behind the scenes, say that doesn't slow down. I mean, and you were that way the first time I met you out there in the hallway. As you've gotten into this, what have you looked at? I mean, have there been a moment where you thought I jumped in the deep end of the pool and I can't swim, or is this all kind of exciting?
It is. People ask me, what's the biggest surprise? And I tell them how much fun I'm having. And it's so cool to get a new job and to really be enjoying it, because I am bringing a different environment and different atmosphere to the Capitol. I've met with all the other thing is I've met with every single House and Senate member for breakfast, the Democrats, Republicans. Democrats have normally never been invited over to the governor's mansion. I'm meeting with them. I meet with leadership every Tuesday morning for breakfast. And this is something I kind of laugh at and tell the House and Senate members. I said, listen, guys, I said, my friends back in Tulsa, I said, we were never involved in politics. We don't really know what the difference is between the House and the Senate. So get over yourself, because sometimes they want to make sure that the Senate gets a win. And if the governor gets something, what's the House get? What's the Senate get? Yeah. They want to split everything a third. And I'm like, guys, the people in Tulsa, the people I met in Guyman and Enid and Lawton, they're just taking their kids to piano lessons and soccer practice. They just know we're their elected officials. Let's go move the needle. We're all Oklahomans here. We don't have to play, Washington, D.C. politics. Let's just move the needle. And that's the message I have for the Democrats. That's the message I have to them, because sometimes inside that Capitol, it gets so petty. It gets so, well, you killed my bill, so I'm going to kill all your bills. And no. It's about good government. And here's what we're doing to service the people of Oklahoma. And that's kind of I try to bring them back down to reality a little bit. And it seems to be great. And they laugh at me. And
for a guy who grew up in Norman and went to OSU, bipartisanship's kind of in your wheelhouse, isn't
That's
it?
right.
And now lives in the Tulsa area.
And now lives in the Tulsa area,
right? Yeah. What are you going to do? But when you talk about that, that's easy to laugh about, not always easy to do. But you've had some good help with that. I know G.T. Bynum has said many times how much he appreciates your partnership. Are you getting that from mayors around the state? And of course, we're very happy with the direction Tulsa's moving.
Absolutely. I had lunch with GT just the other day, and I spoke to the Municipal League, which is the whole group of mayors, and I basically talked about the support I have for the mayors, the local control, the ability for them to be able to run their cities the way they want to. Giving them more flexibility. I mean, I'm trying to help the mayors as much as I can, but yeah, we're feeling economic development. It's a local type solution.
And Dan, I told you about that. He and GT just popped into White River.
Yeah, I was going to say White River. I'm sure the crowd there was excited to see the governor and the mayor. Just
but the
saunter in.
Problem was, I asked GT. I said, okay, what's really important is what you guys eat. And GT remembered what he had, but not what you had. So what'd you have?
GT's on some diet, so he had like a salmon salad, and I think I got the. Fried fish platter or something.
All right, see there, Mr. Mayor? He remembers.
That's right. That's
Good
right.
Man.
How's the family adjusting to all this?
They're all doing great. My daughter's a senior, and so we're still in Tulsa. For them, it's pretty normal. They're still in Tulsa. I'm commuting back and forth, and we're planning on moving to Oklahoma City sometime this summer, and then get the kids in school next year.
And you personally, I mean, Rick already touched on. Do you ever feel like you're in too far? I know you're a man of supreme confidence, but have you adjusted? Have there been stressful moments where you've thought to yourself, okay, I need to get some help with this. I need to take a step back and look at, have there been stressful times?
Well, sure, there have been. And I tell people, let's never take ourselves too seriously. Let's take what we do seriously, but let's not take ourselves seriously. So I ask a lot of questions. I don't walk in and act like I know everything. I surround myself with the smartest people, and I ask a lot of questions. I've got a great relationship with the Speaker of the House, the President of the Senate, Greg Treat, Charles McCall. We meet every Tuesday, and so I ask them a question. My Secretary of State is Michael Rogers, and he was 4 years in the House. He's out of Broken Arrow. He's fantastic. So I have a group of these insiders, but then with my cabinet and my COO, I've got all these outsiders that are business people, because most governors have never really focused on running the state and running the agencies. They always focus on the political side of it in the Capitol. So I've got my political folks, but I have my agents, the folks running the agencies. And my whole key is when they figure out, hey, we got to do this different to deliver better results, and it flips over to the other side of my house, which is the political folks, to go change the law. And to go tell Oklahomans, here's what we need to do to make a difference. So I've got the political folks, but I also have the business people.
So has your family yet done one of those things, or like one of the kids? Yeah, my dad, the governor. Have you been name dropped by your own family yet?
Oh, I think so. My parents really love it. My dad introduces himself. I'm famous now. Is what he always tells people. I'm the father of the governor, and so him and his buddies. And when he goes into restaurants and people see his last name, they go, "Are you related to the governor?" And Dad says, "Yeah, that's my son." And then people will take pictures with my dad and my mom, and they love it. And it's
teenagers
cool.
are more likely to say, "Yeah, my dad, the governor."
Oh yeah, my kids, we want to go to school out of state. We don't want anybody to know where the governor's so they're more reluctant to talk about it. Now my second grader, he just did a report at school to be governor for the day. So he came to the Capitol with me, and cool. I'd signed a proclamation for him, and He went to all my meetings, and so he did the little picture. So he loved it. So it's kind of different, but the teenagers could care less.
Have they picked their place in the mansion yet? Have they said, that's my room, that's my room, that's my room?
Yes, they've all put dibs on the rooms, and the mansion's kind of small, so they'll probably be sharing some rooms.
Oh, last question. What's the biggest mistake you've made?
Wow. I just try to push myself probably. What's the biggest mistake I've made?
I mean, any new job, somebody's, you're gonna have missteps from time to time, even if it's just going to the wrong office.
Yeah. Let's see here.
You ever started for work and driven to your business instead of the mansion?
I haven't. I've got drivers now, which is pretty crazy.
Right.
They drive me back and forth to the Capitol, so that's good. Probably maybe working too hard and not spending enough time with my kids, and so that's always as kind of a workaholic. You always question. You got to balance putting God first, really. God first, then your family, and then your work. So maybe I probably pushed myself a little bit too hard. But this first session was so important, and at the end of the May, then I'll have some time off. It'll get back to normal a little bit. But thank the Lord, we haven't really, knock on wood, made tons of mistakes yet on that. But maybe being unprepared for some speeches when I went out, those kind of things.
I think he was about to say coming for this interview.
Yeah, he was probably thinking that. Governor, thank you. Congratulations on a successful first 100 days, and good luck in the future.
Thank you so much, and thanks to Oklahomans for putting their faith and their confidence in me, and I'm working my tail off to deliver results for them.
Awesome.
Well, I never been to hell.